Think about the last time someone misunderstood you. Maybe it was something you said. Maybe it was a decision you made. Maybe it was a choice about your life, your career, your relationship, the direction you decided to go in that somebody in your circle did not agree with. And instead of just letting it be you explained, you went back, you laid it all out. You gave them the context, the reasoning, the full picture of why you did what you did and why it made sense and why they should understand. And at the end of it, they still did not get it. Or worse, they used what you told them to argue back harder. Or worse still, they walked away nodding and then went and told someone else their version of it anyway. And you stood there thinking, why do I always do this? Why do I always feel like I owe everyone an explanation? Why does it feel so uncomfortable to just let people think what they think? Here is the answer. Because nobody ever told you that you do not have to. And today, that changes. There is a rule inside Stoic philosophy that almost nobody talks about. Not because it is complicated, but because it goes against almost everything we were taught growing up. We were taught to communicate, to be transparent, to express ourselves, to make sure people understand us, and all of that has its place. But somewhere along the way, for most people, that healthy communication turned into something else. It turned into a compulsive need for approval, a constant low-level anxiety about what people think, a habit of shrinking and justifying and defending every single time someone looked at their choices sideways. Marcus Aurelius noticed this in himself, and he wrote about it in his private journal in a way that is so direct it almost feels like he is sitting across from you. He said, "It never ceases to amaze me what we do when we crave the approval of others." He was the most powerful man in the world, and he still felt the pull, still felt that itch to justify himself, to be understood, to have people see him the way he saw himself. But he kept coming back to the same truth, the one truth that the Stoics built an entire philosophy around. You cannot control what other people think, not ever. Not with the perfect explanation, not with the right words chosen carefully, not with evidence and context and patience and goodwill. You cannot make someone understand you if they have already decided not to. And chasing that understanding is one of the most exhausting things a human being can do. So let us talk about what actually happens when you over-explain yourself. Because most people think explaining more makes them look confident. It does the opposite. The first thing that happens, you hand people power they were never supposed to have. The moment you start explaining yourself to someone who questioned your decision, you are sending them a message. Not the message you intended. Not "here is my reasoning so you can understand me better." The message you are actually sending is "your opinion of me matters enough that I need to change it." And the moment a person knows their opinion matters that much to you, they have leverage. Not because they earned it, not because they deserve it, but because you handed it to them by showing up to defend yourself. Epictetus said, "Never explain yourself to anyone. A person who deserves an explanation already understands. A person who does not deserve one will not accept it anyway." Think about that for a moment. The people who genuinely love you, the ones who are actually in your corner, do not need you to explain your choices. They trust you enough to believe there is a reason, even if they do not know it. And the people who are questioning you, challenging you, making you feel like you owe them an account of your own life are not going to be satisfied by anything you say, because the explanation was never what they were after. The reaction was, and every time you give it, you give them exactly what they came for. The second thing that happens, you make yourself smaller. There is something that occurs in the body, not just the mind, when you start justifying yourself to someone who doubts you. Your voice changes slightly. Your posture shifts. Something about the way you hold yourself becomes a little less certain, because the act of explaining, the act of defending, carries within it an implicit admission. An admission that the other person had a point worth addressing, that their doubt was significant enough to require a response. And once you have made that admission, even if you win the argument, you have already lost something. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change. But if no one can, what is it you want from me? That last part. What is it you want from me? That is the energy of someone who has genuinely stopped needing to be understood. Not cold, not dismissive, just settled. The kind of settled that comes from knowing who you are so clearly that other people's confusion about you simply does not reach you the way it used to. You cannot shrink someone who has stopped performing for the audience. The third thing that happens, the more you explain, the more they question. This is the one that nobody warned you about. Most people believe that if they just explain themselves well enough, clearly enough, thoroughly enough, the other person will eventually be satisfied and move on. But that is not what happens. What actually happens is the opposite. Every explanation you offer becomes a new surface for them to push against. Every piece of context you provide becomes an invitation to interrogate further. Because here is the uncomfortable truth about people who regularly question your decisions. It is rarely actually about the decision. It is about the dynamic. It is about whether you will show up and perform for them. And the moment you stop showing up, the moment you stop performing, the dynamic dies. Not immediately. Sometimes it gets louder before it gets quieter, but eventually, when there is no reaction to feed on, it stops. Seneca wrote, "If you wish to put an end to conflict, put an end to your part in it." Your part is the explaining, the defending, the going back, the endless, patient, careful articulation of a life that was never theirs to approve in the first place. Stop doing your part. Watch how quickly it ends. The fourth thing that happens, you train people to expect access. This is a slow one, but it is one of the most damaging things that chronic over-explaining does to your relationships. When you consistently explain yourself to someone, you train them to expect it. Every new decision, every change in direction, every choice that deviates slightly from what they expected becomes something they wait for you to justify, because you always have before. And when you eventually stop, when you eventually make a decision and do not explain it, they feel entitled to an explanation you never owed them. They push, they probe, they act confused or hurt or offended, not because your silence is wrong, but because your previous explaining trained them to expect your compliance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." Explaining every decision to every person who questions it is the ranks of the insane. It is exhausting. It is endless. It is a loop that never closes. Because once you have explained this decision, the next one is already waiting. Stop training people to expect access to your reasoning. Your decisions do not require a board meeting. Your life does not require a press conference. The fifth thing that happens, you lose the version of yourself that does not need permission. This is the biggest one, because here is what nobody tells you about the habit of over-explaining. It does not just affect your relationships, it affects your relationship with yourself. When you explain yourself constantly, when you justify and defend, and seek understanding from people around you, you slowly outsource your self-worth to the verdict of others. And the version of you that knows clearly, without needing anyone to confirm it, that your choices are valid and your direction is right and your life is yours, gets quieter and quieter, until one day you realize you cannot make a decision without first running it past someone, without first imagining how you would defend it, without first building the explanation in your head before you have even made the choice. Epictetus said, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." That tranquility, that deep, unshakable, settled feeling is impossible to reach while you are still auditioning for the approval of people who were never qualified to give it. The version of you that does not need permission is still in there. It is time to bring them back. So, what do you do instead? Because this is where most people get stuck. They understand that explaining too much is costing them, but they do not know what to replace it with. And the answer, the Stoic answer, is so simple, it almost sounds like nothing. You replace it with this: a decision, made, lived, not discussed, not silence as punishment, Not coldness as a wall, just a life lived from the inside out rather than the outside in. When someone questions your choice, you do not argue, you do not defend, you do not lay out the logic. You simply exist in the choice, calmly, completely, without apology. And if pressed, if someone genuinely pushes, you have one sentence that ends every conversation that was never yours to have in the first place. And that sentence is, I have thought about it, and I am comfortable with my decision. That is it. No elaboration, no invitation to continue, no door left open for further debate. I have thought about it, and I am comfortable with my decision. Say it once, warmly but firmly, and then change the subject or end the conversation. Because that sentence does something remarkable. It communicates without aggression, without coldness, without any of the drama that defensiveness creates, that the conversation about this particular topic is over. Here is what the Stoics actually understood about this. Explaining yourself constantly is not kindness. It is not transparency. It is not healthy communication. It is fear. Fear that if people do not understand you, they will not accept you. Fear that if someone thinks badly of you, it means something true. Fear that your choices are only valid once someone else has confirmed them. And the antidote to that fear is not a better explanation. It is a deeper relationship with yourself. One where you know, without needing anyone to agree, that the life you are building is yours to build, that the choices you are making are yours to make, that the direction you are going in does not require a committee. Marcus Aurelius put it simply. He said, you always own the option of having no opinion. You always own the option of not explaining, of not justifying, of not performing for people who were never your audience. That option is always yours. You just have to choose it. If this said something you have needed to hear for a long time, share this with one person who needs to stop explaining themselves today. New Stoic wisdom here every single week. And in the comments, tell me honestly, is there someone in your life right now that you keep explaining yourself to? No matter how many times you do it, they still do not get it. You do not have to name them. Just tell me yes or no, because I think most people watching this right now already know exactly who that person is. And I think it is time to stop.